from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Saturday night and this is the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes along with Alex Phillips, Reem Ibrahim, Benjamin Butterworth and Charlie Rowley. Tonight on the show, the Duke and Duchess of Woke go broke. Yes, so as I say, absolutely delighted. Great panel that we've got for you today. Alex Phillips, Reem Ibrahim, Benjamin Butterworth and Charlie Rowley on the show. Now, I'm going to be telling you about the Duke and Duchess of Woke going broke. Charlie?
Why it's vital that all Conservatives come together, including Boris Johnson.
Why the nanny state is taking over Britain.
And why it's about time we brought back the dog licence.
And why I think the gravy train of free prescriptions for over 60s needs to end.
It's 8 o'clock and this is the Saturday 5. Right, welcome to the Saturday 5, the show that will be marking the King's birthday with an hour of anger, recrimination and petty bickering. It's what he would have wanted after all. Benjamin Butterworth is here with me, as usual, but Albie and Emily have been suspended for a week by the Standards and Privileges Committee. So we're delighted to welcome brilliant broadcaster and politician Alex Phillips, the Institute of Economic Affairs guru and all-round media colossus, Reem Ibrahim, and he used to work for the government, so he's used to trying to defend the indefensible. Welcome to the show, Charlie Rowley.
Now, the premise of the show is simple. Each host outlines their argument about a topic of the day, and then we all pile in and it makes question time look like a children's tea party, although we're a lot more honest than the people there. And of course, we want to know your views as well. So get in touch by emailing gbviews@gbnews.com. But before we start tearing each other apart, and we will, it's your Saturday Night News with Ray Addison.
Thanks, Benjamin. Here's the latest from the GB newsroom. Our top story, the National Education Union has announced more strike action next month. On the 5th and the 7th of July, teachers in England will walk out in their long-running dispute over pay. The NEU is also reballoting its members to see if they want to continue taking industrial action for the rest of the year. Thousands of people have been marching in central London calling for a change in UK abortion laws. They were chanting for the release of Carla Foster, who admitted to taking abortion pills after the legal time limit, resulting in the death of her child. The 44-year-old mother of 3 was given a 28-month extended sentence. Some MPs have called for a rethink over the law, which bans terminations past 24 weeks, except in exceptional circumstances. The man charged with the murders of the 3 victims of Nottingham's knife attacks has been remanded in custody. 31-year-old Valdo Kalokani is accused of killing Barnaby Webber, Grace O'Malley Kumar and Ian Coates on Tuesday. He's also accused of 3 counts of attempted murder after 3 other people were injured when they were hit by a van. Police have named 4 people from the same family who were found dead in a flat in West London. Although formal identification is yet to take place, they're being named as 3-year-old David Vodacek, 11-year-old Maja, 35-year-old Monica and 39-year-old Mikkel. Officers forced entry to a property on Staines Road after concerns for their welfare yesterday. Met Police says it's not seeking anyone else in connection with the incident. Well, the King has celebrated his official birthday with the nation during his first Trooping the Colour ceremony as monarch. Around 8,000 spectators surrounded Horse Guards to watch the military parade, which dates back 260 years. For the first time since 1989, all 5 regiments of Foot Guards, that's the Welsh, Scots, Irish, Coldstream and Grenadier, paraded together. of around 1,500 soldiers. It was also the first time that a monarch has ridden horseback during the parade in more than 30 years. Of course, the last being Queen Elizabeth II in 1986. And the Kremlin says it's unlikely that Russia will extend the Black Sea grain deal. The current agreement allows food and fertilizer to be exported from 3 Ukrainian ports, providing a steady food supply to multiple countries. Its collapse could leave some nations facing food shortages. Meanwhile, President Putin says he's shown African leaders a draft peace agreement with Ukraine, which he claims Kyiv has turned down. On TV, online, on DAB+ radio and on TuneIn too, this is GB News. Back now to all 5.
It's Saturday night and you're with the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes and you're safe to sit back and relax with a nice drink for the next hour as we try and set the world to rights.
Now, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are rarely far from their headlines, and they've parted way with Spotify after just one series of their Archetypes podcast. No doubt Darren is backing the popular couple all the way. Yeah, it's grime time.
Well, today, as Ray Addison has just told you, was King Charles' official birthday. We saw our military at their finest and the royal family waving from the balcony of Buckingham Palace for trooping the colour. The King's first as sovereign. The King took part on horseback, the first monarch to do so in 30 years. Meanwhile, folks, in a mansion somewhere in Montecito, there's somewhat less to celebrate. Meghan and Harry, remember them? Well, the Duke and Duchess of Woke are waving too, but it's a wave goodbye as their palace and media empire made of sand starts to crumble. Rejoice. In 2020, the pair signed a deal worth about $20 million. The Wall Street Journal report that the couple hasn't met the productivity benchmarks required to receive the full payout from the deal. Well, the first episodes didn't actually appear until 2 years after that agreement was signed, and now it's gone. Isn't it absolutely extraordinary that the pair who said that it was too tough to be working royals now say it's too tough to produce a few vacuous, vapid and vain podcasts for millions of quid? The poor dears. How on earth are they going to pay for that mansion's mortgage now? Commenting on the pair and the deal, Bill Simmons, who is Spotify's head of podcast innovation and monetization, didn't exactly hold back.
Wish I had been involved in the Meghan and Harry leave Spotify negotiation. The grifters. That's the podcast we should have launched with them. I got to get drunk one night and tell the story of the Zoom I had with Harry to try to help him with a podcast idea.
Do it.
It's one of my best stories.
Dude, there hasn't been a Drunk Simmons podcast. Let's both get drunk.
How embarrassing. I'll tell you what, I, for one, cannot wait to hear about Ginge and Whinge on this Zoom call. Hopefully this is the end for them. Even America has had enough. Their lucrative deals are falling away and this plastic pair may have to start learning a thing or two about actually working for a living. Well, Benjamin Butterworth, I'm pretty certain that you disagree with that vehemently, and that actually you were probably one of the most vehement listeners of the podcast.
I mean, I think I listen to every episode, but I have to say that...
I'm sorry for your loss.
My time I won't get back. In part, that was because I had to write about each episode. And that's because there was a huge worldwide interest. You know, they had people like Mariah Carey. They had huge stars going on there to share their stories. And actually, you know, I just don't get why people like you have such a visceral hatred of this couple that you can't accept what is basically a great British success story. Britain propelled them forward. Harry is one of the most famous Britons on the world. Why can't you be happy
Well,
for
if we
them?
consider that Harry and Meghan are a tech startup, right? They've gone out to America, they're trying to make it in the podcast and Netflix industry. Well, it's a tech startup that's gone under and maybe they're going to need a bailout sometime soon. So it's hardly a British success story, is it?
I mean, I think, you know, people like you have this constant obsession with this couple who are just trying to make their own way. I'm sorry, but you spend the rest of your life talking about why people shouldn't live off the state. Well, they said we don't want to live off the state, and now you're still moaning.
I bet they'll be back with their, Meghan's handbag, asking for hands out from the palace, Alex Phillips.
Yeah, I get the impression she's probably got some political ambitions that we'll soon learn about as well. But, I agree with you. It does seem to me that they want to be famous for the sake of being famous. They don't want to do any work for it. It sort of, to me, seems to corroborate the idea that she probably married him for status and for extra fame, supercharging herself all the way to the A-list. But I think that public opinion, both here and abroad, is really beginning to drop for them now. I was speaking to Americans the other day when I was on holiday in that side of the world, and none of them want them. Everyone I spoke to just wants to send them back here, and I was like, no, you keep them.
Reem, do you find it extraordinary that you top cheese at Spotify, right, on a podcast, his own podcast, actually saying that, calling them beeping grifters?
Well, I mean, it is quite a damning source of evidence there for sort of the way that the couple have been able to sort of grift their way through this sort of media atmosphere. I mean, Benjamin, I think it's entirely ludicrous to sort of depict this couple as this kind of British success story. They themselves claim to want to live their truth. They wanted a private life, so to speak. So, of course, they came out with that 5-part Netflix documentary. And, of course, they came out with this Spotify podcast. So I think, really, it's the hypocrisy that gets me.
Yeah, because Charlie, I mean, Benjamin, on his point there, basically saying, I don't understand why the British people hate these people so much, or why I and the British people, but it is the British people, because polling tells us this. But actually, it's the ingratitude, right? There was so much love and respect for this couple in the country at the time of the royal wedding that actually people feel a great sense of betrayal from Harry. He was their prince, and they feel that actually he's turned around and said that there's a racist country with a racist past, colonial past, and all the rest of it. And that's actually why people are delighted that actually it hasn't worked out for them.
I think Reem's right. It's the hypocrisy. This guy, Prince Harry, was brilliant. Brilliant institution. Comes from a brilliant institution. Represents the UK in all the best ways. But the hypocrisy of leaving the family, wanting a private life, but then exploiting the media just when it suits him and Meghan to make money, to go onto Oprah, to do things for Netflix, and now not successful podcasts we've just been listening to. It is a great shame. I think this guy it was a huge asset to our country, and he's just extremely lost.
Can I ask, because I think there's a big diplomatic question that this causes. You saw, for example, Barack Obama didn't invite Harry and Meghan to his 60th birthday, which was seen as something of a Hollywood snub. You spent, 5 years in government or something as a special advisor. Does this stuff make it difficult when government ministers are asked about it? Because, like it or not, they play a pretty sensitive role in relations between US and UK.
They do, and it's always that balance between what they do as a family that, obviously, as the head of the nation, it supports the government, but also they've got to protect themselves. They are a family after all. And it is just an incredibly sad story, the way that I think that, they've upped sticks and gone over to the States. But as I say, it's that hypocrisy of trying to claim the want for privacy, but yet exploiting the media at any given opportunity.
Because, Alex, reports are suggesting that actually they are going to lay low and they're not going to be doing the tell-all books and interviews and podcasts and all the rest of it. Do you believe them?
Well, let's see. I mean, I can't imagine what else they've got to say now, but of course I think...
Well, I can't imagine what else they've got to do.
Right, the next documentary will be about Harry's trial in London. And actually, picking up on what we were just talking about then, it was pretty shocking, wasn't it, in that trial, when he took to the stand and was basically slagging off the government of the country. And you think, you have no right to do that. This is about you. This is about a grudge you've got with the newspapers. But he started bringing in sweeping attacks against the nation itself. And I think that is where Prince Harry suddenly becomes a problem. Both he and Meghan seem to have a sort of messianic complex where they think that their morality is above everybody else's, and they're quite happy looking down their nose, living in their massive mansion, and thinking the rest of the world has done them some great injustice.
We're going to have to leave it there, but I'm sure you at home will be absolutely delighted at the thought of them, well, sodding off, frankly, but there we are. That was a lively start. Let's move on with our next topic. Up next, making his debut on the show, it's Charlie Rowley. And he has set himself the small task of uniting a Conservative party that's currently fighting like rats in a sack. Charlie, issue your rallying call.
Well, I think it's fair to say that all families row. And the Conservative Party has been no different. Having taken on some of the biggest challenges our country faces over the last 13 years, it's obvious that some of those rows would spill out into the public. But I think it's important to recognise just what the Conservatives have done over the last 13 years and what it can do over the next 5. Under David Cameron, he took the decision to lead a coalition government in the national interest. He dealt with Labour's debts, he got the country and the economy moving, and he took on the party, delivering things like same-sex marriage. He also promised to deliver a referendum. Under Theresa May, she identified that it was those that are just about managing, those people on low and middle incomes that needed support. She identified that there was this social justice agenda that hadn't been tapped into in this country, and it was her mission to try and deal with it. But after a divisive EU referendum, what she was able to do is to keep the party together. And under Boris, the blonde bombshell that has got the political antennae that no one has ever been seen before, he's reached across all parts of the country. The charm, the cheek, the ability to understand what levelling up meant for this country, to roll out the vaccine that was so successful after COVID, to talk tough to Vladimir Putin against the actions that Russia have taken against Ukraine. Boris is part of the success of the Conservative Party. He's part of the success of this country, and he will always remain part of the Conservative family. We have a Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, that is now determined to lead us through the challenges that we face in the future, stopping the small boats, getting the economy moving, dealing with the backlog in the NHS. We must get behind him. I know Boris will do that. Every Conservative in the country will do that, because it's only united that will the Conservatives go on to win the next general election, and a win for the Conservatives will be a win for this great country.
Well, Charlie, I mean, stopping the small boats, a lot of my viewers will be sat seething at home saying, hang on a minute, stopping the boats? We've got boatloads coming over just this weekend.
Well, I think it's absolutely vital that, you know, with all the pledges and all the things the government says, people can feel change, they can feel the difference. And I think, look, we have seen those numbers of people coming over into this country illegally. That is wrong. But we have a compassionate Conservative side. You know, it is absolutely right to accept people from Afghanistan, from Syria, from Ukraine, where there is war and conflict. That is absolutely within our heart and in our DNA. But where there are people that are coming to this country illegally, you have to be determined and double down and do more than, frankly, any of the other Conservative governments and any other government previously has done before, which is being tough on deporting people who shouldn't be in this country, but making sure that you've got the people that can do the processing, to make sure that people that do come into this country are not at the behest of the taxpayer that is spending $6 billion on hotel rooms. We need to sort all of that out. But at least it's a step in the right direction, and I think Rishi Sunak is the only one that's been able to grip it.
Alex, are you champing at the bit there to get in?
Oh, Charlie, you're such a nice person.
Just getting on.
I know, but I'm afraid your hope is for the birds, isn't it? A united Conservative Party. Come on, I mean, the Conservatives, I disagree with you. They don't have a legacy, and the reason they don't have a legacy is because all they've been doing is playing parlour games and faction fighting for 13 years. Every time we're on a trajectory to something, there's a change of leadership and a change of direction. Sometimes 3 in a whole year, which hasn't done much favours for our economy, has it? No one's going to invest in a country when you don't even know who the Chancellor is from one day to the next. What I think needs to happen now, quite clearly, is the Conservative Party isn't fit for purpose in its current makeup. It needs to just cleave into two. It needs to forget this broad church idea. Those who actually believe in Brexit, those who actually believe in proper old-school right-wing ideology, come to reform, and at least then voters know what they're voting for. Soft Toryism, fine, vote the Conservatives. You want what you think is conservatism, vote reform. At the moment, you vote the Conservative Party, you don't know what you're going to get. And that is, frankly, an insult to democracy.
The idea, very quickly, that Boris Johnson is ever going to leave the Conservatives and join Reform is to quote back at you, for the birds.
Yeah,
because,
it's a shame.
Reform and UKIP that share ideas can't even share a platform together. So the idea that Boris is somehow going to go and jump to Reform, I think that he is part of the Conservative family, he's part of the success of this country, and he's going to continue to be a part of it.
I mean, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if a failed politician joined Reform. I call it regurgitate UK, frankly, because all of them have come back round in that party. But look, Charlie, you know, I think you could probably fit all the people that agree with you on a small boat. You know, that's how few there are at this stage. You know, the Conservative Party has been through so many different versions of itself in the last 13 years. It seems to have some kind of personality disorder because it can't make its mind up from one moment to the next. And actually, what I'm sick of, and I think a lot of, and here's where I'm sure I'd agree with our own blonde bombshell, I'm sick of their psychodrama running the country instead of ideas and policies. And even though they weren't what I voted for, what many people in the country voted for. You know, even when Liz Truss came into office and she had all this new set of ideas, and it was like, well, actually, many of those weren't the ones that were voted for 3 years earlier. And now we've got a whole new set with Rishi Sunak. You don't deserve to be in government. You're disrespecting this country.
But I just, appeal to people, look, the psychodrama and the Tory changes of leader, hasn't been helpful at all. Of course, it's been chaotic for people, but it is about the ideas and it's about delivery, but it's also being able to adapt. And so when you can confront the challenges that you face, look, you can be still a traditional, vote blue, go green Conservative. You can care about the environment. You can care for cleaning up the air and clearing out those Just Stop Oil protesters that blight the lives of so many people in society. You can absolutely take on Brexit and exploit the positives of it while still being on the global stage. You can level up, you can invest in the UK as well as being a low-tax Conservative. All of these things are possible. It's not a binary choice.
Well, if they're possible, why haven't the Conservatives been doing any of them for the past 13 years?
Point, it definitely is about the ideas, and we saw this kind of identity politics. I don't want to call it a psychodrama, I will call it an identity crisis. I mean, the Conservative Party in government at the moment, we've got the highest tax burden since the Second World War. We actually had lower taxes under the Labour governments of Tony Blair and Gordon Brown.
Did.
So I think that fundamentally it's this identity crisis. We need to have these conversations about the ideas, otherwise the party seems to be going in no direction.
Well, I mean, to be fair, taxes were only lower under Tony Blair because he inherited a very good economy after the Tories had sorted it out, after people trashed it.
I think that's a bit ridiculous, given that the economy grew faster than ever for 10 years.
Yes, thanks to the Conservatives sorting it all out.
Thanks to libertarian small state policies.
Tax and
well, they haven't exactly done that this time round, have they?
I would accept that. I would totally accept that.
The Conservatives can't keep dining out on Margaret Thatcher. They just can't keep doing that. That was almost 40 years ago now.
I've got a feeling everyone at home is screaming at their televisions, and I think Charlie's been practising that one for a while, so well done. Still to come tonight, I will gently explain why we don't need free prescriptions for the over 60s, and Lex is vexed about dangerous dogs causing chaos. But next, we're going to hear about why Britain's nanny state goes too far. Yes, it's almost time to live the ream. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
First and foremost, I'm a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is the Saturday 5. Thanks so much, as always, for all your emails, especially those regarding Meghan and Harry. Now, we've had one from Mrs. NG, who says they are not making their own way. They are scrounging on the royal family name. All the secrets are out now, so there is no media interest. And on the Tories, Christian writes, any real Conservative should shun Boris and his party. He promised lower immigration and lower taxes, and like every Conservative, he gave us the opposite. Charlie said the Conservatives will stop the boat. How's that going?
Well,
good point.
True. Up next, though, it's time to ask if the nanny state is taking over our lives. Yes, folks, it's time for us to live the dream.
The nanny state is unfortunately taking over Britain. Just this week, the government were forced to drop plans to ban our buy one, get one free supermarket deals. That's right, the government came for your tobacco, they came for alcohol, they came for food and drinks, and now they're coming for your supermarket deals. Now, this is despite the government's own projections from Public Health England back in 2015 that this policy would cost £600 a year to the average household. That is including the fact that these kind of deals will actually only reduce calorie consumption by about 4 calories. Now, that's the amount of about a grape. Now, is this grape actually worth an increase in £600 a year to your food costs? Now, I don't think so. Fundamentally, what we've seen here is the government have continued to try and increase the amount of control that they have on your lifestyle. Now, not everybody agrees with me. Albie isn't here this week on the panel, but he has also tweeted, continuously tweeting all of that rubbish, and also said that actually he is very supportive. Let's take a look. He says that people are seriously behaving like only being able to buy one 100-gram of Haribo gummy bears for £1.25 instead of 9 on Sainsbury's on the screen on the certain days of the week where they have the buy one get one free deals of 480 grams of apples of Tesco's. Well, I can't read the rest of it. I haven't got my glasses, but we have seen here Albie as an example of a particular individual that is actually quite supportive of these kind of schemes. Effectively, it's the government taking over your lives. Now, we've seen not only just on buy one, get one free, but also on planning regulation. So Michael Gove and also Chris Whitty have also said that they're going to be using planning regulations in order to try and cut down obesity. So we've seen in Newcastle, where our lovely Darren Grimes is originally from, they've actually restricted the amount of Papa John's pizza places that they are going to be able to build in Newcastle. Fundamentally, this is about them taking over our lives. We've seen this month with the Nanny State Index published by the Institute of Economic Affairs that the United Kingdom is one of the most authoritarian governments in Europe when it comes to nannying. Now, we can see from the graph here that actually we are pretty good when it comes to vaping, but when it comes to tobacco, we are the worst country in Europe to smoke. So, everybody else, what do you think about the way that the government have sort of been able to nanny the state? Darren, do you think that I'm worrying about nothing?
Well, at risk of really angering Alex Phillips, yes, I think actually we are too much of a nanny state. I do think that actually allowing people to... If you want to be a fat slob, you should be able to be a fat slob. And we always come back to this argument.
Oh, that was moving. That was emotional.
It's what people died for.
It's like Mandela.
And I think ultimately this argument of keep saying, well, you need to do this for the NHS. Boris actually in his first Daily Mail column today wrote about Wegovy, which is this jab that you jab in yourself in order to make you not have so much of an appetite and lose weight. Now, to me, he says that didn't work for him. And I thought, oh, really? I couldn't tell. And Boris actually says, you know, it hasn't worked for him, but we need to do this for the NHS. That's what people always say. I don't live for the NHS. You know, I'm not a slave to the NHS. So I'm sick of this argument.
It does feel as though a lot of the government's sort of public health policies are centred around the fact that we have a socialised healthcare system. Now, Benjamin, I suspect you disagree that actually... What do you think about the NHS and socialised healthcare in terms of the way that we look at public policy?
Well, I mean, like all rational people, I agree with the concept of the NHS. You obviously disagree. But look, you know, I think we have got to a situation in this country whereby a lot of food has a completely different makeup of ingredients to what you would have got a few decades ago. They're full of salt, they're full of sugar, and that's intentional on the part of food producers because those things get you addicted. I can think of times where, you know, I have a McDonald's and I really want to go back. There is something in there that is playing havoc with my mind, OK? It's not like having some fruit. And so the idea that the state should try and encourage people or take away the incentives to get hooked on these foods, which are taking advantage of us, I think that's quite reasonable. That will encourage people to make better decisions.
Do you really think that the British people are too thick to understand what's going in down their own gobs?
No, what I think is that the people that make Haribo or McDonald's or the fried chicken, all things that I eat, by the way, I think they're clever enough to know to get us hooked, and buy one, get one free and offers like that are doing their job for them. That's what we need government
So do you
to
think
step
it's
in.
worth the increase in £600 a year for your food bills?
But of course, it's not necessarily £600 a year because the idea is that you change your habits, right? And actually, you know, food prices have gone up in this country already. I think people would do better to eat healthier than to be try and torn into doing this.
So are you saying it's going to work for you? We're banned, buy one, get one free, and you'll stop eating all the crap that you've just said you do eat?
Clearly,
You will just pay the price,
No,
won't
what
you?
I'll pay is for that jab that Boris Johnson was...
Well, I'm partial to a piece of pizza every now and again, but I think there are two things here. It's about the cost of food and it's about the cost of living, and sometimes it is that those unhealthy foods are cheaper and more accessible for people who clearly are on lower incomes will go to those to help with the cost of living rather than more healthy foods. We need to address that balance. I think that's the first thing. But I think the second thing is, in the case of Papa John's, you know, it isn't the case that I think there is someone, you know, Michael Gove perhaps sort of sitting at the desk with a big map and saying that can go ahead or that shouldn't be there or we should have a walk with. You know, I think this local authority in Newcastle or wherever it was decided that they didn't want a Papa John's in their area. It was the local planning authority, local councillors decided they didn't want it because they thought that would be detrimental to the community because it was near a school and they didn't want the parents buying pizza for their kids on the way home when you could have a healthy alternative. Because I think ultimately if you do have a string of unhealthy kids and an obese society as we are becoming, that becomes more of a burden in the NHS in the long term. So it's about making sure that local people decide what should be in and not their communities, but making sure that the cost of living is fair for everybody.
Yeah, I want to hear from Alex in a moment, but I think that fundamentally what you're saying is that these planning regulators know better than parents themselves. Now, I believe that actually parents are clever enough to know what goes down their children.
It's local councillors that voted against it, and they're democratically elected by the local people.
They did, and we know that a lot of those planning regulators actually are nannying themselves. I mean, they've actually said that it's the high levels of obesity in Newcastle that have motivated the blocking of that planning regulation. I mean, Alex, what do you think?
Obesity is a massive problem. Metabolic syndrome is a huge cost to society. It's the reason why we had so many COVID deaths for a start. But I think what the government get wrong, you know, messing about with buy one, get one free, I mean, that does nothing. Forget it. That is just, you know, stupid window dressing policy. When actually what you have is the big food industry essentially operates like big tobacco. They are just as evil, they're just as cunning, and they know exactly what they're doing, and they are essentially killing people. Now, that might sound quite extreme to you, but when you think that when people go to the supermarket and buy food, you expect, well, it's past food hygiene tests and safety standards, this is safe for me to eat, but a lot of it, frankly, isn't. A lot of ultra-processed food is linked now to an increase in colon cancers in people under 40. And actually, when you say, oh, parents are clever enough to know, actually, are they? Because when they go into the supermarket with their kids and their kids see all the lovely breakfast cereals created for children, most parents think this is fine, this is a cereal created for children, when it is laden with sugar, which then has an impact on the way children behave and so on and so forth, their attention. And if, you know, parents are unwittingly enabling their children to get fat, because actually, no, a lot of people don't realise. And this is how cunning big food are. They sold us back in the 70s and 80s the low-fat diet. They said if we ate animal fats, this is bad for us, we'd get fat and we'd have heart attacks. The opposite is true. A healthy amount of animal fat lowers cholesterol, and the low-fat products were all, again, laced with sugar, and that made us fat. And what are they doing now? They're pushing veganism. Good for the environment, good for your health. Frankly, ultra-processed, meat-free rubbish is bad for both.
I mean, there we are. We'll end it on an anti-vegan note. I think that's a perfect time to end it. Still ahead, though, unfortunately, Benjamin is going to tell us why, actually, people who've worked all their lives, or the over 60s, that is, shouldn't be entitled to free prescriptions. But coming up next, Lex is vexed about dogs attacking humans and other dogs, and she won't be holding back. You're with the Saturday 5, live on GB News.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions, and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio, and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. As always, thanks for all your emails about tonight's topics. Regarding our old friend Albie's tweets, which Reem raised earlier, Lee said that's because Albie is not a Conservative. He is the very definition of a con-socialist. Ouch. And Peter from Newcastle writes, England is the biggest open prison in the world. Now it's time... Oh, God. That's that. Right. Now it's time for our next debate.
Right, another day, another mutt mauling. If they're not chomping down a chihuahua or tearing apart a toddler, puncturing a postman or savaging someone on a sunshine stroll, dogs, what is going on? You know, you just have to do a simple Google News search, and I did one earlier, and in the last couple of days alone, there have been 5 different dog attacks around the UK, 15 major dog attacks in London since the start of this year. Has Kerberos given up his watch post in Hades and mated with Zoltan, the devil dog of Dracula, to create some sort of brand new species? No, I will tell you what's going on. It is humans, not the dogs. Humans all over the country have decided they deserve to have a lovely little pooch. And so they're going to Fred on Facebook and buying some gnarly old mutt who has not been pre-programmed to know how to behave and putting the poor thing in an airless apartment and then letting someone with 50 different dog leaves paid £5 a minute to walk all the neighbourhood dogs that then savage each other. I mean, this is just frankly ridiculous. I say it's time we bring back the dog licence. I'd expect the next time Morris wants to buy his cockapoo, he's going to have to be checked out that he's got the right garden, the right gaff and the right gear to look after it, and goes on some sort of mandatory mutt management training course. And then I'd like to think that if his dog decides to go Cujo on my cat, I could at least make sure it gets some puppy penalty points and has to go back to the canine college. I'm not a fan of dogs, you may have realised this, but I've realised I've got to share the planet with them. All that I ask is that both the authorities and people who own dogs realise they might be their best friends, but to me they smell like Kipchoge's old marathon sock, have a really terrible issue with a weak bladder, make more noise than Steve Bray on steroids, and frankly I think that they're just lumps of meat with sharp fangs. Let's bring back the dog licence, let's protect Fido himself, but also protect the likes of us who don't want their cars urinated on, don't want to be barked at on the tube, and frankly think that dangerous dogs now need to come to an end.
Well, Alex is well and truly off the leash with that one. We're going to debate that in just a moment, but we've got some breaking news, so we're going over now to Ray Addison.
Good evening, I'm Ray Addison in the GB newsroom, and in breaking news, new footage has been released which appears to show Conservative Party staff holding a raucous party in December 2020 during the COVID pandemic. Now, in the video, which was obtained by The Mirror, one partygoer can be heard urging another not to live stream the footage as they film. Meanwhile, behind him, a man and a woman holding hands and dancing, appearing to drunkenly bump into a table covered in party food. At least 24 guests were reportedly at this gathering. This is a breaking story. We'll bring you more on this as we get it.
Welcome back, folks. Now, Reem, on what Alex has just said, I assume because you're a full-throated libertarian that actually you're going to say another set of licences? Come on.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, fundamentally, this is looking at another set of regulations, another sort of impediment into our individual lives. Look, I'm no fan of dogs either, but I do think that, generally speaking, most owners are quite responsible for their dogs. They tend to be quite good at it. We've seen, only a handful of sort of vicious attacks by a lot of these dogs themselves. Again, this kind of management training course, I mean, who is this going to be taught by? How much is it going to cost the taxpayer? How much more bureaucracy do we really need?
Well, it's not bureaucracy if you're actually protecting people. And actually, the amount of dog attacks has gone up exponentially. I'm sure everybody watching this can think of various stories that have happened in the last few months alone, and a lot of them actually involve little children. And the other thing is people are now buying dogs that are deliberately bred to be big, giant pieces of meat with teeth on them, essentially. And a lot of people don't know how to train their dog. They don't know how to control it. Who should pay for it? The dog owners themselves. Perhaps then people might think twice about getting a dog. Dogs are not urban city dwellers either. I don't think it's right or fair to have a dog, keep it cooped up in an apartment, go on 15 short-haul holidays and expect Fido to be happy. I actually think there's a huge lack of responsibility out there, and there's no point, I think, being anti-regulation for the sake of being anti-regulation. This, I think, is quite essential.
But then we're a nation of dog lovers, aren't we? What are we going to do with all... Well...
Not everyone is.
Many of our viewers will be, and they'll be saying, but Alex, what are you going to do with all of the dogs that are left because people can't get past the regulations and pay for the training and all the rest of it?
Well, there's going to have to be some sort of discussion about how the licence is brought into force and how much it costs. And I certainly think if people have been proven that they can't control their dogs, they should be forbidden from keeping dogs in the future. And I certainly think with these things, you can't sort of apply things retrospectively. With any legislation, that doesn't make sense. So it'd have to be moving forwards. But actually, this would have a knock-on effect to all sorts of other things. There's a very cruel trade going on right now from illegal puppy farms because everybody wants a dog and people are selling, poor little dear things that have been fed shards of glass, so they're meant to implode after about 6 weeks, and you go back and get another one. I mean, it's frankly ludicrous. If we are a nation of dog lovers, actually having the licence system is better for the dogs as well.
Those particular farms are already illegal, so surely it's a failure of the police service that aren't cracking down on those already illegal farms.
And what have the police service got to go on? If you had dog licences, your problem solved.
I'm sorry, but I agree with Alex. I'm not saying hell has frozen over, but I do. I agree with Alex. Reem, I don't think you understand how difficult it is to have a fear of dogs. I obviously don't literally remember it, but when I was on a holiday before I was 1 year old, a dog had attacked me, and the mental damage of that, or tried to attack me rather, lived with me forever. And I couldn't walk down the street as a kid if I knew there was a dog there. I couldn't go to the park. I couldn't go into someone's home if I knew there was a dog there. The fear was completely overwhelming. And a lot of those owners do not appreciate the effect that a fear of dogs have. Because dogs are normal, and nowadays I do not have that fear of dogs, but it's absolutely crippling, and they are everywhere. And I don't think society recognises that. And that's why something like what Alex says might prevent the kind of dog owners that let me have that situation when I was just a baby.
Benjamin, I have a lot of sympathy for every individual that has any kind of sort of phobia at all. I mean, I'm sure that was quite difficult to deal with. But just because a few people are afraid of something doesn't mean we should consign them to the corner of the room.
But why should... I'm sorry, that's such unpleasant nonsense, because why should a few people have their regular lives be cut because of you?
OK, we'll have to leave it there. But out of interest, I think too many people got dogs during lockdown, to be honest, and couldn't actually socialise these dogs, and the poor dogs don't know what they're doing.
Exactly.
That's the problem. Still ahead, though, Benjamin's going to explain why he wants our beloved over 60s to live out their lives without so much as a free prescription. This is going to get interesting. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point.
And action.
Sergeant Green, my superstar panel, they're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News. Britain's watching.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Fridays from 8, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. On Mark Dolan Tonight, in my big opinion, DIY shop Wix insult half their customers with a crazy politically correct campaign. Why can't they just sell ladders like they're supposed to? In my take at 10, Harry and Meghan see their Spotify deal cancelled. This royal soap opera is running out of storylines. We'll bring you highlights from the Trooping of the Colour, with live reaction in the studio from the Queen of US Royal reporting Kinsey Schofield. Plus my top pundits and tomorrow's papers. We're live from 9.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Cheers for your company and for your emails. Paul says, dogs are the least of our worries. 99.9% of dogs are safe, a better percentage than humans. Trevor says, come to Northern Ireland, we have dog licences, we'll have voter ID, we'll have free prescriptions, and we don't have water meters. Well, I think I might move, actually. Now it's time, I love Ulster, for our next and final debate. Up next, it's Benjamin, and he's going to tell us about the decision to freeze the prescription age at 60. Away you go, Benjamin.
Yeah, there's one of us you can't put on a leash or a licence, and that's me. Now, good evening. The government was going to raise the age at which you can get your prescriptions for free from 60 to 66, that being the retirement age for most people, and now it's decided that 60-year-olds should still get it for free. I think this is outrageous. I'm sick of the entitled generation of boomers that think this country should give them everything. Being 60 years old means nothing. You're still in full-time work, you're hardly elderly, and why should 30-year-olds be paying for your freebies? The truth is that someone in their early 60s is 9 times wealthier than somebody in their early 30s. They are the luckiest generation that there has ever been. And so I say, whether it's your bus pass, whether it's your free prescriptions, you ain't getting none of it at 60. It should be at least 66. And while we're at it, I think we should raise the pension age as well.
Well, you know what? I think that is the biggest load of tripe that I've ever heard in my entire life, and a horrible assault on some people that have been working all of their lives. They had interest rates back in the day, thanks to the socialists that were had in charge in the day. They had interest rates in double figures, much higher than what we're going through right now. They have worked all that time. They have, I think, a right to expect to be able to go and get something from their doctor
We're talking about
to help them keep healthy.
Like 5-6 more years, you're saying, not at 60, 66. Oh, yeah, why not? People are living longer, people are working longer, retirement age is going up. I agree.
A 60-year-old can have a lot of problems in life.
Yeah, so they can, sure. But they're also likely to be considerably richer than anyone else. So I'm sorry, Darren, you need to explain, why should a millionaire 60-year-old get freebies on the NHS while kids with cancer need treatment?
Well, I'll tell you, I'll explain to you right now, because you're saying that actually people should start paying more for the NHS. So dare I say it, Benjamin, you're starting to sound a little bit like Reem Ibrahim and the Institute of Economic Affairs.
Well, you'd get rid of it for everyone, I bet.
I would, and I actually think that, including pensions, I mean, why should a millionaire pensioner be able to sort of claim on the state pensions altogether? Same thing with prescriptions, same with a free bus pass. Why are these wealthy boomers, who, by the way, can own their own homes, unlike our generation, I think that actually they shouldn't have any freebies on the state at all.
I think it's a bit of a jump from 60 to 66. If you're going to increase the pension age or increase this where you can have the free prescriptions, it needs to be incremental, because I think you absolutely do need a balance between protecting pensioners and people that are elderly and the most vulnerable at the other end of the spectrum and young people, and that's why you should vote Conservative, because they are a party that are going to deliver for everybody up and down
It's
this
embarrassing
country.
how much you want a safe seat.
Well, it's a lot safer than this one, I can assure you.
There are no safe seats at GBNews, I can tell you, after 10 weeks of this show. But look, I mean, what is so special about a 60-year-old? I suspect the 60-year-old viewers watching this, they won't want you calling them elderly.
They have worked hard
and do you know
all their
what?
lives,
Just to bring proceedings to an end, I think it's pretty rich of Benjamin Butterworth to sit there and call older people entitled, an entitled generation. I mean, come on, Benjamin. You are probably one of the most entitled people that I've ever had the displeasure of meeting.
Well, I tell you what, they got all their houses, all their healthcare, a booming economy.
They worked for all of that.
Yeah, and what do you think the rest of us do? I'm sorry, but there is a comeuppance coming to the boomers, and it's going to be a shock. They've got to pay for some of this eventually.
I mean, Reem, the point there, you surely take that point that actually a lot of older people are looking at the younger generation and they're saying, well, actually, you know, we had interest rates sky high, the economy was the sick man of Europe in a lot of cases, and that actually, you know, young people today have it pretty good.
I've got got to say, I'm on Benjamin's side on this particular argument. I actually think that I agree that a lot of these pensioners and a lot of these individuals that are obviously able to claim that free
But they're not all
prescription,
multi-millionaires like
they
pensioners.
aren't all multi-millionaires. They have all paid their way through the taxation system. But I think that entire system is wrong in itself. I mean, fundamentally, it means that those individuals have to work for that money and then they end up claiming those freebies. But of course, not every older person is a millionaire, but some of them are. And we should be targeting that kind of support rather than giving us effectively a socialist blanket approach to everyone.
Well, a quarter of people who are retirement age are millionaires. In a few years, there'll be more wealth among retired people in their 70s than workers in their 20s. That is unsustainable.
That's why you want to bump them all off.
Yes, and that's why you need to cut taxes for lower and middle-income people.
Benjamin's argued that we need to send all the pensioners to Rwanda.
Well, I think we'd have more growth in the economy if you had the people coming here on small
An
boats.
absolutely disgusting thing to say. I thank all of the older generations that have actually built this country into what it is. And that's it for another show, though. Unfortunately, we've had a real hoot, I think it's safe to say. Thank you to Benjamin for co-hosting tonight, but don't worry, my dear viewers. Emily's back next week. Margaret says, great show, dreadful, uncomfortable seats for guests. Buy 5 IKEA chairs, I can't concentrate on debate. For feeling sorry for guests balancing on bar stools. Well, that's one for HR. Next up, it's brilliant Mark Dolan. Cheers for watching. I'll see you next week.
Good evening, my name's Rachel Ayres and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast brought to you by the Met Office. So it's been an unsettled first half of the weekend and that's not going to change tomorrow. This unsettled weather is all due to this area of low pressure that's out to the west of the UK, bringing various occlusions in from the southwest, and these are a bit of a focus for some heavy showers and thunderstorms. Now, looking at the detail for this evening, and thunderstorms and showers that we've seen through today will continue tonight and push north-eastwards. There will be a few clearer spells as well around this evening, but for North Sea coast, low cloud will push in as well. And this cloud and some of the rain we've had around today will make for another warm and humid night. So to start Sunday, it'll be quite unsettled for some, with showers already to start the morning. Some places will see a bit of hazy brightness as well before we see further heavy showers and thunderstorms popping up, especially as we get closer towards lunchtime. Temperature-wise tomorrow, though, it'll be similar to today, though where we see any prolonged spells of showers, things will feel a little cooler under those cloudier skies. Now, we do have 2 yellow thunderstorm warnings out from 12 o'clock tomorrow, and this is due to plenty of thunderstorms around during tomorrow evening especially, and these will push northwards throughout the afternoon and overnight to clear Scotland during Monday morning. And this could bring some disruption tomorrow evening, so do check the weather if you are travelling. It will mean that it will be quite a warm and humid start again on Monday morning, but a bit more in the way of brightness, especially across England and Wales, a bit cloudier with some rain across Scotland to start the new week. But further south, showers will soon develop as we go towards Monday afternoon. And not much will change throughout the rest of the week, with showers continuing, though it will stay warm and humid.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The people's channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the people's channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute.
kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight, and we have some developing news for you this evening. The Mirror newspaper has acquired exclusive footage of Tory party employees laughing about breaking lockdown rules at Tory party HQ during the pandemic. Take a look at this.
I'm pretty sure
Now, this is a huge exclusive on the part of the Sunday Mirror. We're going to cover this in great detail during the papers at 10:30. But that is a bombshell video, a video that I believe potentially loses the Tories the next election. A massive developing story, and we are on it tonight. It is 9 o'clock on TV, on radio and online in the United Kingdom and across the world. This is Mark Dolan Tonight. In my big opinion, DIY shop Wix insult half their customers by implying they're bigots if they don't buy into woke ideology. Why can't they just sell ladders like they're supposed to? More on this incredible story shortly. My Mark Meets guest is champion boxer and barrister turned best-selling crime author Tony Kent. As a barrister of almost 20 years standing, Tony has prosecuted and defended some of the most high-profile criminal trials this country has ever seen. In my take at 10, Harry and Meghan see their Spotify podcast deal cancelled. This tired royal soap opera is running out of storylines. Plus, more on this developing story, an incredible exclusive from the Mirror newspaper, a damning first video of Partygate. But first, the headlines with Ray Addison.
Thanks, Mark. Yes, our top story tonight. New footage has been released which appears to show Conservative Party staff holding a raucous event at Tory Party headquarters in December 2020. That was during the COVID pandemic. Now, in the video, which was obtained exclusively by the Mirror, one partygoer can be heard urging another not to live stream the footage as they joke about COVID restrictions. Behind him, two dancing revellers appear to drunkenly bump into a table covered in party food. At least 24 guests were said to be at that gathering. CCHQ says that formal disciplinary action was taken against 4 staff members over that event. Deputy Labour leader Angela Rayner is saying the video shows the Tories openly mocked the rules the British people followed. We'll bring you more on that story as we get it. Now, the National Education Union has announced more strike action next month. On the 5th and the 7th of July, teachers in England will walk out in their long-running dispute over pay. The NEU is also reballoting its members to see if they want to continue taking industrial action for the rest of the year. Thousands of people have been marching in central London today, calling for a change in UK abortion laws. They were chanting for the release of Carla Foster, who admitted to taking abortion pills after the legal time limit, which resulted in the death of her child. The 44-year-old mother of 3 was given a 28-month extended sentence. Some MPs have called for a rethink over the law, which bans terminations past 24 weeks, except in exceptional circumstances. Well, police have named 4 people from the same family who were found dead in a flat in West London. Although formal identification is yet to take place, they're being named as 3-year-old David Vodacek, 11-year-old Maya, 35-year-old Monica and 39-year-old Mikkel. Officers forced entry to a property on Staines Road after concerns were raised for their welfare. Met Police says it's not seeking anyone else in connection with the incident. The Kremlin says it's unlikely that Russia will extend the Black Sea grain deal. The current agreement allows food and fertilizer to be exported from 3 Ukrainian ports, providing a steady food supply to multiple countries. Its collapse could leave some nations facing food shortages. Meanwhile, President Putin says he's shown African leaders a draft peace agreement with Ukraine, which he claims Kyiv has turned down. And the King has celebrated his official birthday with the nation during his first Trooping the Colour ceremony as monarch